My name is Arnold Spencer. I am 89 years old and live alone in a simple apartment in the Notting Hill neighborhood of London. When I tell people my age, they always react the same way. Their eyes widen, they tilt their heads, and ask what my secret is. I usually smile and say I have no secret. But the truth, the real truth, is that I do. And that truth almost cost me everything. Let me go back in time a bit. At 52, I was a different man. I worked as an accountant for an import and export firm, had a heavy routine, slept poorly, and ate even worse. My wife, Lucy, took care of the house and our 3 children, Mark, Renee, and Julia. We didn't fight, but we didn't truly talk either. That thing of living on autopilot, you know? I thought everything was fine, until I started waking up more tired than when I went to bed. I felt a weight in my body, a constant irritation, as if a gray cloud had settled inside me. Lucy noticed. She always noticed everything. One evening after dinner, she looked me in the eyes and said, "Arnold, you're not well." I denied it, of course. Men of my generation didn't admit weakness, but she insisted. She dragged me for a full checkup. The doctor was direct. High blood pressure, sky-high cholesterol, rising glucose. He said I wasn't sick yet, but I was on the way. That chilled me. It wasn't fear of passing away. It was fear of becoming a burden to my family, of losing my autonomy, of becoming that dependent old man who needs help for everything. I left that doctor's office with a strange feeling, rebellion mixed with impotence. But I did nothing. I went home, continued working, continued sleeping poorly, and then something happened that I never imagined. Lucy discovered she had a serious health problem. I won't go into detail because it still hurts too much, but she needed to step away from everything for a while. The children were already adults, living far away, each with their own life. Mark was in Manchester. Renee had married and moved to Edinburgh, and Julia was constantly traveling for work. Suddenly, I found myself alone, completely alone. The house became too quiet. I would wake up in the middle of the night and look at the empty side of the bed. I'd eat whatever standing in the kitchen, tasting nothing. I stopped talking. I stopped taking care of myself. I started living like a ghost within my own life. And the worst part, I began to accept that this was normal, that aging was just that, slowly fading away. Until one day, visiting Lucy, where she was recovering, a doctor stopped me in the corridor. He was in his early 40s with a firm but gentle gaze. He said, "Sir, you know that isolation is as bad as smoking or drinking, right?" I looked at him without understanding. He continued, "If you don't take care of yourself now, you'll end up needing care too. And then who will take care of your wife when she returns?" That hit me like a punch to the stomach. I had spent my entire life thinking that taking care of myself was selfish, a luxury. But at that moment I understood, if I wasn't whole, I couldn't be present for anyone. Not for Lucy, not for the children, not for myself. It was there that everything began to change. A few days later I had to travel for work to Brighton. It was a quick trip to sort out some client papers. I was exhausted, but I went. On the first day, I woke up with the sun hitting my face directly through the hotel window. Normally I would swear, close the curtain, and try to sleep more. But that day, I don't know why, I got up and went for a walk. The sun was rising, the beach was empty, the wind was on my face, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years, lightness. I took a deep breath. I stood there, just looking at the sea, feeling the sun on my skin. I stayed for about 10-15 minutes. When I returned to the hotel, I realized my body felt different, more awake, more alive. It was as if a switch had been flipped inside me. I returned to London determined to repeat that. Every day, as soon as I woke up, before looking at my phone, before turning on the television, I would go to the balcony and stand there facing the morning sun. 10 minutes, that's all. Breathing deeply, feeling the light on my face. The first few days were difficult. My mind pulled me towards worries, towards problems. But I persisted, and little by little I began to notice changes. I slept better. I woke up with more energy. That energy slump I used to have in the middle of the afternoon disappeared. I researched about it. I discovered that sunlight regulates our biological clock, balances hormones, improves sleep, mood, even immunity. I was impressed. Something so simple, so free, and no one had told me. But I was still alone, and the loneliness continued gnawing away inside. That's when something happened that scared me. An upstairs neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, fell ill alone at home. No one noticed for almost 2 days. When they found him, he was very debilitated. That shook me. I thought I could be next. I live alone. My children are far away. Who will know if I need help? I remembered what that doctor had said about isolation. I decided to act. I started small. I called my sister Nancy, who lives in Bristol. I talked to her for 10 minutes. The next day I called again, and again. It became a routine. Then I expanded. I started talking to the building's doorman, to the lady at the bakery, to the man who sold newspapers on the corner. It wasn't empty talk. It was real conversation. I asked how their families were, told them something about my life, listened to their stories. And you know what happened? My blood pressure started to drop. My mood improved. I felt less tense, less trapped inside my own head. I later discovered that talking activates brain areas linked to empathy, emotion, reduces stress, gives purpose. But at the time, I just knew it made me feel good. It made me feel human again. Lucy came home 3 months later. She was better, but she needed care. I was prepared, or I thought I was. Because the truth is, our relationship had changed. We didn't fight, but we no longer recognized each other. We were two strangers sharing the same space. One afternoon, looking out the window, I saw the abandoned backyard, full of weeds, dirt, nothing growing there. Lucy used to take care of that space. She planted herbs, flowers, said it calmed her soul. But now she didn't have the strength. And I had never been interested, until I decided to try. I went down, grabbed an old hoe, and started cleaning a little corner. I planted mint. Then came chives, tomatoes, some flowers Lucy liked. I can't explain what happened, but every morning, when I went down and worked that soil, something inside me calmed down. I slept better, woke up more energized, felt less anxiety. I researched again. I discovered that contact with the earth releases substances in the brain linked to well-being, that caring for something alive awakens purpose, reduces inflammation in the body, even improves immunity. Once again, a simple thing changing everything. Lucy noticed. She started coming down with me. We watered the plants together in silence. And in that silence, something began to rebuild between us. But a piece was still missing. I ate without paying attention, swallowed food quickly, always with the television on or my phone in hand. I'd finish my plate and not even remember what I had eaten. One day, Lucy looked at me and said, "Arnold, are you eating or just swallowing?" That caught me. I decided to change. I started eating in silence. No television, no phone, no distraction. At first it was strange. My mind was restless, wanting to escape. But I persisted. I chewed slowly, felt the taste, gave thanks for the food, and little by little my digestion improved. The bloating disappeared. My weight stabilized. More than that, meals became a moment of peace, a moment for myself. Lucy started doing the same, and those silent meals became our point of connection. We didn't need to talk, just to be there, present, conscious. But there was still something missing, something profound that I couldn't name until I found it. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. We're continuing. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear. Mary came to visit me on a rainy Tuesday. She brought a cornmeal cake she had made herself and observed the house. She noticed the plants in the backyard, saw that it was tidier, realized I was different. "Dad, are you okay?" she asked, but it wasn't a question of concern. It was one of pleasant surprise. I told her about the walk in the sun, about the daily conversations, about the plants. She smiled that way that reminded me so much of Helen. Then she said something that changed everything. "Dad, you're taking care of your body, but what about your mind? Do you eat properly? Do you pay attention to what you're eating?" The question caught me off guard. I thought I did, but when I stopped to think, I realized I didn't. I ate while watching television, looking at my phone, reading the newspaper. I finished meals without remembering the taste of the food. Mary, with that silent wisdom she always had, suggested something simple. "Try eating in silence, Dad. Just you and the food, no distraction. See what happens." I confess I found it strange. Eating in silence, alone, it seemed even worse, but I decided to try. At the next lunch, I turned off the television. I left my phone in the living room. I sat at the table with just my plate of rice, beans, and a pork chop I had made. The first few minutes were uncomfortable. My mind screamed for distraction. But I took a deep breath and continued. I chewed slowly. I felt the aroma. I mentally thanked for that food. It was surprising. I finished the meal satisfied, without that bloated feeling I always had. Digestion improved in the following days. The swelling disappeared. My weight, which had fluctuated so much, began to stabilize. But more than that, I recovered something I didn't know I had lost: consciousness, presence. Each meal became a sacred pause, a moment to take care of myself. I was feeling better than I had in years. My blood pressure had normalized. My cholesterol was down. My glucose was controlled. I went back to the doctor for new tests, and he was impressed. "Mr. Anthony, what have you been doing?" I told him about my habits. He shook his head, amazed, and said I was on the right track. But I still felt a piece was missing, something deep that would unite everything. It was in a conversation with Raphael that I found the answer. He was visiting me again and mentioned that he had been meditating in the morning. He said he used an app with specific sounds, frequencies that helped calm the mind. Meditation? I laughed. "Raphael, that's not for me. I'm too old for these modern things." But he insisted, "Dad, it doesn't have to be complicated. Just sit, listen, and breathe. 10 minutes. Try it for a week and tell me what you think." Not to disappoint him, I accepted. Raphael helped me download an app on my phone, gave me headphones, and explained the basics. Every morning, before anything else, even before my walk in the sun, I should sit in silence, put on the headphones, and listen to that audio. During those 10 minutes, he suggested I visualize 3 things: how I wanted to feel that day, what I wished to attract into my life, and what I needed to release, to let go of. On the first day, I felt ridiculous. An 80-something-year-old man sitting in the living room, eyes closed, listening to strange sounds through headphones. But I did it anyway. I visualized myself feeling light. I wished for health and peace, and I tried to release the sadness I still carried from Helen's passing. Nothing special happened, but I came back the next day, and the next, and the next. In the second week, something began to change. The anxiety that still accompanied me, even with all the other habits, began to diminish. The day's decisions seemed clearer. I slept deeply, without interruptions. And the most incredible thing, I started to feel creative. I, who at 50 couldn't even fix a tap, at 80-something was having ideas, making plans, thinking about projects for the house. I researched about it. I discovered studies on brain waves, on how certain sounds can induce states of deep relaxation, improve memory, reduce stress. I learned that visualizing what we want can reprogram the mind, align thoughts and emotions. For me, that practice became the foundation of everything. It was as if, in those 10 minutes, I regained control of my own life. The 5 habits were now integrated into my routine. I woke up, meditated with the audio, went out to expose myself to the sun, took care of the plants, talked to someone during the day, and ate in silence with mindful attention. Each one was a brick in the construction of my health. Where there used to be constant pain, stable energy emerged. Where there was apathy, purpose was born. But the true transformation came when I realized that I was no longer that empty man who was fading away. I was someone who chose to live with presence. It wasn't overnight. It was a patient construction, repeated even on difficult days, even on tired Fridays. I learned that consistency outweighs intensity, that it's not about grand revolutions, but about minimal daily choices. Gus brought his grandchildren to visit me one Sunday. Lucas, 7 years old, and Sophia, 5. They ran through the backyard, admiring the tomato plants, the flowers. Lucas asked me if I could teach him how to plant. Of course, my grandson, come here. We spent the afternoon together, hands in the earth, talking about seeds, about patience, about how each plant has its own time. When they left, Gus hugged me tightly. Dad, I was afraid of losing you, but you came back. You're different. You're alive again. Those words moved me more than I expected, because he was right. I was alive again, not just breathing, but living, with purpose, with presence, with health. The years passed. I reached 85, then 87. I continued with my habits, the morning sun, the daily conversations, the earth between my fingers, the silent meals, the meditation at dawn, and my body responded. No colds, no persistent pains, no alarming diagnoses. While my siblings accumulated medicines, I continued driving my car, doing my shopping, taking care of my life. When I turned 89, Mary organized a lunch. Raphael came with his family, Gus with his grandchildren, Amelia from Glasgow, cousins, friends. Everyone looked at me with that mixture of admiration and disbelief. How do you do it, Anthony? Mr. George, the baker, asked. You don't get sick. You're always energetic. What's the secret? I looked at everyone there, at those people I loved, and realized it wasn't a secret. It was a choice. For years I saw people full of plans slowly lose their spark. First they stopped moving, then they slept poorly, ate without attention, isolated themselves, complained of pains, but changed nothing. Time took its toll. I refused to accept that aging meant declining. I told them about the 5 habits, about how I started at 58 when I was at rock bottom, about how each small gesture added up, built, transformed. It wasn't easy. There were days I wanted to give up, days that seemed useless, but I persisted, and my body, wise, responded. Mary hugged me with tears in her eyes. Dad, you're proof that it's never too late, that we can always start over, and she was right. Because it's not about age, it's about decision. Today, as I write these words, I continue with my routine. I wake up, meditate, listening to my audio, visualize my day. I go out to the backyard, breathe under the morning sun. I water the plants, feel the earth. I always talk to someone. I eat in silence with gratitude. And at night, when I lie down, I give thanks for another day of full life. I don't consider myself a guru. I'm not an expert. I'm just someone who decided to listen to my own body before it was too late. And by doing so, I transformed what could have been decline into fullness. I've seen people in their 70s, their 80s, resume walks, regain memory, rediscover meaning. The mistake is to wait for motivation to begin. Motivation arises after the body responds to the first gestures of care. Don't wait for the pain to scream. Don't accept living on autopilot. Choose one habit, just one, and start tomorrow morning. Life doesn't end when age advances. It renews when consciousness awakens. As long as there is breath, there will always be time to start over. At 89, I am still here, planting, talking, breathing under the sun, eating in silence, and preparing my mind at dawn. Not because I fear aging, but because I chose to live with presence, and I believe with every cell of my body that anyone can do the same. You just have to start.